Hey guys, it's Jamie, and I wanted to ask you, do you remember the interview that I did with Ace Chapman? Now, Ace is amazing and thank goodness a really great friend of mine now, but he actually buys and sells businesses. And way back when I first interviewed him, I was amazed. And one of the things he says, which I adore, is why would I build my own laptop? Why would I build my own house? Because some people are not meant for the building stage. And if you feel like that's you, because sometimes we're like banging our head against the wall, market, product, validation sucks. If that feels like you, go check out Ace's new website. It's called websitemogul.com. You can actually go to websitemogul.com/EM and he has a special offer for you. So you can actually see behind the scenes how he buys and sells companies. He's done over 100 profitable deals and he helps other people do it also. I'm super excited. I want to learn all about how to do that too because I haven't had a chance to. So if you feel like you're one of those people who just want to actually see the business and exactly how to do the buying and selling so you don't have to be stuck in this startup rut, because sometimes, again, you bang your head against the wall. You can only do that so many times. So go check out websitemogul.com/EM and let them know that I sent you. Thanks. Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jamie Masters, and today on the show we have Nick Kullin. Now, he runs Second Flight Academy and has a digital marketing agency, and I'm really excited to dive deep on anti-conformity and marketing craziness. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Nick.
What's going on? I'm really psyched about this, and this is going to be a lot of fun for you and us and all your listeners, so I'm excited.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm listening to rock and music before we hop on. He's talking about, like, how can I deliver the most possible to your listeners? So we're going to dive right into it. We started talking about growth hacking. We'll talk about your story later. Nobody cares about that right now. So you said you have some very specific thoughts on growth hacking. And I feel like it's one of those terms where people are like, oh, it's a buzzword. So tell me more about the whole point of growth hacking and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. So growth hacking has been one of the coolest words out there. It's like you mentioned, it's like a cool buzzword. It makes people think like, oh, that sounds sexy. I want to know more about it, right? It was before it was like social media marketing. Oh, that's cool. Then online marketing. Oh, that's cool. And now people are like, oh, growth hacking. What the hell is that? Like, that sounds really cool. But the thing that most people think when they think growth hacking, and there is a lot of like application processes that revolve around that, from A/B split testing to all this nuance and application of like configuring things and really looking at the minute details. But when people start to think about growth hacking in that context, it makes people kind of get like that business paralysis of like, okay, this is a lot that's entailed. Where do I go? How do I start? I don't think growth hacking maybe is for me, right? But really, in a nutshell, I always try to tell people growth hacking is more of a mindset, right? The best way to describe growth hacking is, instead of looking how to look, outside the box, you want to try figuring out how to make that box smaller so it's more easier and more accessible. So when you think of growth hacking, I tell people like, whatever the objective is, figure out that one main thing and how you're going to make that box smaller so you can achieve it at the most optimal level. So when you think about a problem, when you think about figuring out a solution, don't think about like all the wild and crazy cool ideas, because what ends up happening, you don't end up doing them because you kind of go into that paralysis. You're like, wow, all right, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, but I don't even know where to start. But when you think about like, what's the one main thing and how can I make that easier for me? How could I hack that one thing? Make that box smaller. Then you start to really think about the main actionable items that can make that easier for you. And then it makes a world of a difference and the biggest impact into your life, into your business. And so I look at growth hacking more as a mindset. And when you really start developing that third eye with your business, then amazing things start to happen. And that's really what I start educating in the academy and what I even apply to my agency for my agency clients. And it does some really cool stuff.
Okay, how do we do that? Because that's the thing. It's like, okay, great, thanks, appreciate it. Either give me an example or tell me how we can actually change our mindset. Because like you said, we're bombarded with information. Everyone's like, now I have to do 1,000 things. How do we pick that one thing, and how do we know what is going to make it easier?
Yeah, so a prime example, right? Prospecting, right? In the sales world. So prospecting, one of the biggest things that is a problem for people is the time suck of it. It absorbs a huge amount of time. It's the mental warfare of doing all that hard work and getting minimal results or getting the no's, right? And all you're trying to do is just get an appointment. So you still got to close the people, right? So like for most people, it's like I don't have the time, or I just can't deal with spending another week grinding and seeing not really a lot of results.
Yeah,
And
I call it
what
pounding the pavement. You're like, okay,
Yep.
slogging. That's what I gotta do. Yep.
So when you think about like, okay, how do we grow this to get you more appointments, and how do we figure out a way that you are hacking the methodology of what you're doing? You start thinking about like clever ideas and what you currently do. A prime example of this, of how we kind of like growth hack this through our mindset, is through LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn, it's a great tool, it's a great database, but you gotta admit the UI on it is pretty clunky, right?
It's horrible. Yeah, I was just talking about this
horrible.
last night with another millionaire that I was hanging out with. We're like, this is so stupid.
It's horrible
Yeah.
because here's the thing. Everyone's lazy on LinkedIn. I don't care who you are, you're lazy on LinkedIn, right? If I have to get another message of someone who wants to connect with me saying like, I'd like to add you to my professional network, dash full name, I'm going to blow my mind off, But what's crazy is that hacking that system is more because people are not taking advantage of it because of the inefficiencies of it, right? So no one's taking the extra time to personalize that connection request message. Nobody is taking the time to spend all their days and hours on LinkedIn to see when that person connects back to do a proper follow-up. So in my head, I'm like, okay, what if I developed and programmed like an AI that could connect with people automatically for you, personalize that message, and then record when that person connects back to send that follow-up message in an efficient manner. So for someone who's prospecting, they have a decision maker who they need to connect with, right? So a growth hack that I developed for a lot of my clients is similar to this LinkedIn strategy. So I would say, hey, all right, who are you trying to connect with? And what we would set up is like, we'll set up the advanced targeting, and then we'll build this custom script to hack their prospecting efforts and do 100 connection requests a day. And then all those connection requests have a personalized message. And what's great is that every person who connects back with you, you're going to touch. And if they don't respond back to that message, it's going to send a follow-up message on your behalf. So literally for someone who's in a sales role or trying to get more B2B business, or even for PR efforts, like a lot of people used it for all these different things. The best thing about it is that you're not burning the time. I like to call it, you're playing catcher. You're just waiting for that opportunity to come through, or someone to book through your online booking link and say, oh, wow, I actually got like a client on demand through this. And it's like, pretty freaking cool. And I didn't spend any time doing it.
Okay, so everybody's all like, okay, I want that. But what are the real conversion rates on it? And you have to be marketing or pitching something that they actually want. And there's so many nuances to it too. So it's easy for you because you've done this many times before. But how can somebody actually do this? And if we don't have a script, are we just screwed?
Well, here's the cool thing. Like, part of the being with the academy and my agency is like, we build this stuff for you and run it for you. So it's like, it's all completely hands off. You just got to wait for it to run for you, pretty much. It's really cool. But what's cool about, we have almost like 40 clients running through this with their profiles, and the results are all the same. So in sales, it's all a numbers game, especially when it comes to prospecting, right?
Yeah.
If you have more numbers on your side, there's better success with it too. But if you think about it, if you're sending 100 connection requests a day, what we find within a 24-hour period, around 30 to 40% of those people connect back. And if you're looking at sending 30 to 40 emails to these people who already said you maybe have a question about what they do, and then you follow up saying like, here's my question, I want to take this on a phone call to like talk more about it, our clients see anywhere from 1 to 5 appointments made from that per day. So, but what's the beauty about this is that it compounds over time. Because if you're sending 100 connection requests every single day, by day 10, you send 1,000 of them. And by day 10, a lot of those people may finally get onto LinkedIn and see accept you then, right? So like, you may start seeing like 30 messages that were sent out, 100 messages that were sent out, over 150 messages were sent out, because all these people are starting to finally connect back. So it's an amazing tool. And for like staffing companies, sales guys, marketers, whoever who just need to get in front of people and they don't want to spend the time doing it, this allows them to free up a ton of time and get the actual results. And that's like a really interesting growth hack that many people could take advantage of, that just involves thinking about how do I make my life easier and free up time and just create a solution that hacks my problem. And that's kind of like how you got to think about, like, when with anything, how do I automate it? How do I make it easier? How do I get to my objective faster and make that box smaller?
Okay, I
So
have so many more questions, but I want to dive a
sure.
little bit deeper into the LinkedIn side because what has a tendency to happen? You add somebody, you send not a generic, but you're like, "Hey, nice to meet you," blah blah. What are those templates? Because I know I have a lot of clients that do outbound sales strategy just like this. They have great conversion rates, but a lot of the times it's annoying because even if you direct target,
Mm-hmm.
if you're asking them a question, usually they're like, "Oh, maybe somebody's interested in my stuff." How do you turn the tables and start selling them their stuff without selling your stuff without looking like a sleazy car salesman? Where you're like, "Oh, by the way, I got something
Yeah.
for you," you know?
Well, oftentimes it's just being completely upfront, right? Transparency is the beauty in industry in business now, right? If you're transparent with something, they respect that more. So in the connection request message, if you say, "Hey, listen, hey Jamie, I saw your profile. I really would love to talk to you because I believe you could help me out with a few things, and I believe I could help you out with a few things on my end too." So what you want to look at using LinkedIn for, especially for this sort of method, is like you want to try figuring out a person or a business objective that you can also equally add value to. What's great is, like, we have a lot of lawyers and financial planners who use this, and they need and want to connect with other accountants and lawyers and whoever, because they exchange business a lot, and oftentimes that you could cross pollinate. So if you're looking at a cross pollinating, it's really easy to put and place yourself in a position where you're like, okay, I'm opening up a door. They may have opportunities for me, but I also know I could add value to them in some capacity. Another big thing that you maybe want to do if you're direct selling is just simply say, like, hey, I checked out your profile. I want to talk to you. And when they connect back, you'd be like, hey, the main thing I want to really talk to you about is this, because I know this is an issue. I know this might be a problem for you. And if this is, I want to, entertain a conversation to learn more about it. And I may have a solution that could help make your life easier. A very simple and transparent thing. But if you're going vague and you're like, hey, I want to talk, and maybe, and they don't know anything about the call, they don't know anything about it, and you're not even telling them what maybe their value might be, or even state what the problem maybe they're encountering, and you have the solution. They just gotta click that button and book a time with you. You're gonna be running into failure or just really awkward phone conversations.
Well, exactly,
with
right? They're
people.
like wasted. So you save your time on the automation, then you waste your time going like, "I'm talking to people and they don't have a clue," and then you're like, "Oh,
Yep.
nice to meet you. Have a nice day. Bye." And
Yep.
that's not worth your
Yep.
time either, and that sucks.
Yep.
Okay.
No, yeah, it's all about being transparent and just explain in that moment, like, this is what I would like to talk to you about.
Do you think it's easy to quote unquote growth hack your own business? I feel like sometimes people are kind of too close to their own business. And so even asking the question, how do I make this box smaller? I mean, most people will sort of get blank stares. Like, I don't know how to make the box smaller. And then they consume more information and they're like, maybe so-and-so will tell me how. Jamie, please
Mm-hmm.
tell me how I can make my box smaller. So,
Mm-hmm.
so tell me more about how they can actually do this for themselves.
Yeah, the number one thing that they want to try looking at, oftentimes the easiest thing to growth hack is your time, right? What are you doing that spends the most amount of time, and if that you do more than once, right, during the day? So if it's a matter of, let's say you're looking up this certain information, or it's data entry or whatever it might be, look at the small stuff and figure out, like, if I'm doing it more than once, or I'm doing this and trying to figure this out, and it involves repetition, how do I automate that process? How do I make that part of my life easier? Or if you're thinking about your business, right, and how to market to people, growth hack the persona of those people, right? You want to, like, figure out, like, what makes them tick, what's their pain point, what keeps them up at night, and then from there, and then moving around to, like, okay, this is their pain point. Now, how do I illustrate that in my copy? How do I illustrate that in my ask? How do I illustrate that in everything? Because oftentimes, especially people who have products, we get too close to our product and we want to just spew out all the value and all the cool things and nuts, bolts, and whistles of it. But we're not talking about, like, okay, maybe they're just interested in that bolt, because that bolt is the actual pain point they have. They don't care about the whistles and all the other good stuff. And oftentimes when I talk to software companies or people who have a product, I'm like, hey, listen, it's all great that you had this 12 bullet point cool feature benefit list, but what's that one thing that would make people buy? Because oftentimes it is that one thing. All the other stuff is good, but it's the one thing that makes people buy. And I oftentimes, people just don't understand how to read their customer's mind and really understand what it is. And if someone was looking at how they growth hack in that sense, it's more like, all right, dive deeper into your actual buyer's persona and really understand like what's keeping them up at night.
Okay, how do we do that? So I have questions about the time and the automation in just a second, but how do you actually read? I know ask them, like that's simple, right? So ask them, but then what do you do once you have that information? You talk to them, you ask them. Sometimes, and this is where I think clarification is really important, because people will go and listen to a podcast like this and go, I was told to run a survey or ask people or call people. And then they have all this information. They're like, now what? What do I change on my sales page in order to make this work? And how do I do this? And then they're stuck because it's all gray at that point. How do we help them there?
So the best thing that you want to do once you absorb all the information, right? And you even look on, one of the best ways to kind of understand what people are saying and using their own words in your copy is I reference Amazon and looking at, let's say if you're selling a product or a service, there's usually a book that's written about the topic. And one of the coolest things that you could do is read the reviews and actually what people are saying about it, and maybe even what they read from the book, like what they are missing from that book that they wish they had. I like to call them, you can find your sticky words, right? The words that people are saying from their own mouths that as your consumer, and utilize that and put that into your copy. But this is where the application of growth hacking kind of exists, doing multiple A/B split testing and figuring out what headline copy is going to resonate to who. But when you start identifying like the silos of your persona, then you can start filtering them out in, like, let's say an email campaign. A good example of this is like we have a client called Academy of Responsible Tattooing. So they teach people how to become tattoo artists. It's a really cool company. So, but they have like 3 or 4 different personas. They have the people who want to be a tattoo artist. They have the career switchers. They have the people who went to art school. Each one of these people are different types of people. So their headline copy of, like, if you love ink and you want to become like the next ink master, do this. And that might be the person who's really into the culture of tattooing. But that may not resonate to the art school person who reads that. The art school person may be like, turn your passion into a profession. Take your skill of drawing and apply it to the best canvas that you could possibly put your, art to. Like, it's a matter of understanding like what really is their core values and beliefs, and then constructing that around your copy and around the persona. But you got to understand like really what makes them happy and what makes them enjoy what they do, and then personalize it from there.
So if we were to give everybody a sort of a step-by-step, because I think this is awesome, and people sort of get overwhelmed going, oh, now I need 4 sales pages or 4 opt-ins or 4, you know what I mean? Great. Thanks so much, Nick. Now you gave me 10 times the work. Thank you. So how can we, hopefully 10 times the conversion also, right? So that's sort of the whole point. But how can we make it super easy for people? So give me like a step 1, step 2, step 3, so that way they can start breaking into, we call them avatars, personas, however you want to describe them. Ryan Levesque calls them buckets. How do they figure out what those are? And then how do we actually, what is the step-by-step on actually trying to at least get one of these funnels converting a little bit, so that way they have some cash coming in, so they have more time, so that they can do more of the rest of it.
Yep. So one of the coolest strategies that we put, so a lot of times people don't have like their avatars or personas at all. They just have a giant clunky email list of let's say 1,000 plus people, and they're like, I don't know who any of these people are. They just opted into my lead magnet. That was pretty generic too, right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that this is bringing back to the Academy of Responsible Tattooing and that story, they had the same thing. They had 30,000 emails of uncategorized people, and we didn't know who they were, what they were. And there's a cool platform out there called Typeform. Are you familiar with it?
I use Typeform all the time. I was just in it earlier today.
One of the things that we help do, and it seems the most obvious, it's like, all right, the most obvious thing is to ask people, but you can't ask all those thousands of people like, well, who are you? But you could use platforms like Typeform to help auto-categorize people based on like their answers. Kind of similar to like a BuzzFeed survey, like what Disney character do you look like?
So
Or
Ryan
do you
Levesque talks about that all the time with his ask funnel. Exactly. That's why we're doing Typeform. We're doing the ask funnel and stuff like that. Okay.
Awesome. So one of the first things I would suggest is like instead of like of course going straight forward like the ask, like make it enjoyable, make it an experience. Find out what they are by saying like, hey, this is the offer. If you do this, you're gonna get this sort of in return. But it's just a cool interactive way of like understanding who they are based on those questions and how if certain people answer certain things, you can say like, all right, every person who answered this question, this is gonna how they're automatically gonna be thrown into this little area. And if you use like HubSpot or Aweber, you could then start building your funnels. Like if they open this headline subject line copy, then this is how they're going to flow. Or if they click on this link, maybe this is the type of content they like. Some people like podcasts, some people like blogs, but you're never going to know if you want to keep throwing podcast content to them if they never click any of the emails that have podcast content. You want to start automatically shifting them to the other form.
That's what's so confusing to people, and that's why I wanted sort of the step by step, because there are so many nuances that people can do. Like even just audio visual reading, like there's so if you, I mean, my funnels are kind of insane, like to go down the rabbit hole of if they don't do this, then they do this, and then they do that, and literally looking at it gives me like a headache. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. So how do we give people
so the easiest
exactly, thank you.
Easiest thing, right? I look at it like the power of 4, right? If you had your first email like in a 30-day kind of trend of like how the next few are going to go, right? And each email is going to have a different categorization of headlines that you want to have 2 different subject lines for, and then you want to flow into the 2 different types of content in that email. Long form that kind of gives like most of, let's say, a blog information in with like a few links, or a short and sweet like a very Neil Patel kind of blog, and throw that in there. First, you can start organizing and seeing like, okay, are people mainly liking to read my content, or are they just looking to look at my email and go right to it? Then you can start understanding like the people who have a lot of time to look on their phone, because most of the time people look on their phone at their email. So you can start to understand your audience's preference. Once you understand that, the next level is the type of content. Are you giving them the offer of, let's say if you have infographics or blogs or case studies or whatever it is, you now want to say like, okay, if people are clicking this, then it automatically is going to start funneling to this type of content. So now you're shifting from your standard 4 different types of content to now if they click on this particular type of content, now it's going to be moving into, all right, this is the type of content they're going to see, and I'm going to throw maybe one different type. Let's say I'll throw a podcast piece of content and see if they click on it. If they don't click on it, then I'm going to move back into my same 4 emails and maybe throw another one in there, another podcast interview in there. And then if they don't click that one, then I kind of know like, all right, this person really doesn't like this, but every time I send them a blog link, I'm able to see that they're clicking on the blog link. And you want to start seeing if someone opens it and they click on like the type of content, a good reference point is if they at least click on that link at like a 20 to 40% rate.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Give me the good rates. I wrote good rates. Okay, so tell me, what are typical open rates, especially for funnels and autoresponders, and what are typical click-through rates?
For what we see, when you don't have a categorized like list, the open rates vary, right? So you can't really tell. I mean, we had guys that as low as 1%, but we also had people who generated closer to the 10 to 15%. But when you start organizing your personas and you get to that level, now you start seeing your open rate flow to the 25 to 35% rate, and the click-through rates being anywhere from 40 to 60% rates. But it's a matter of like sifting out of that like smoke of like who's who, which is why I really emphasize like developing like a type form and start getting them to answer their own questions, but in a cool, interactive, and fun way. And then once you do that, you could then really start saying, okay, cool. So these are all the people who love, cats. Maybe we could figure out a way to like incorporate like, innuendos with like cat terminology, just throw it into our subject line or throw it into these things, because these people like cats, but it sounds silly and it sounds like it could be complicated for some people who are just listening to this, but it's a matter of just saying like, okay, if it was me and I really liked a certain thing, like it would capture my attention and intrigue me enough to take that extra 2 minutes to look at it. And you just can't be lazy with your approach of saying like everyone likes this stuff, because everyone doesn't. And you just got to understand like what they actually like, and it'll make the biggest improvement to everything you're trying to do with your business.
Yeah, because we're getting bombarded by everything, and we really need, I mean, where everything's going is personalization. I only want to look at the stuff that I actually care about. Who knew? We only have so much time. But when you're talking to a small business owner that doesn't have that much time and is trying to learn digital marketing, and they're like, okay, this is a lot. So, just to sort of condense what you're saying, just asking yourself, like, if you were in that piece where they are, what do you want, right? So pretend you're that persona, and then go through and be like, oh, I clicked on this because, or I didn't click on this. And if we can sort of put it down to one persona and figure out one person at a time, or one persona at a time, that would probably be a little easier, right? So if we work on one funnel, or do you suggest having a separate funnel for each persona?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. So like, let's say easiest way to figure out your persona is, simply ask, like, if you have a product, let's say you have fitness equipment, right? And one of your stuff that you're trying to build is like yoga equipment, right? So you have a yoga mat and all that stuff. But yogis typically like a bunch of different things. Some are really into the fitness, but also some people are into the lifestyle of it. Some people are into the healthy recipes and all that stuff, or the meditation of it. So like, you should really think about like, all right, what kind of people do I normally attract in this particular area, and how do I develop like people who buy my yoga mats? There's maybe two or three different types of folks who buy my yoga mat, and then figure out like, okay, people who are really into like the meditation element of it, I need to make those people into a very specialized area that talks about like, the meditation, maybe some deep breathing exercises, and how maybe this particular mat, and the cushion of it really helps keep your zen, or things like that. But maybe some people are just really into like the workout of it, and maybe like the Julian Michaels hardcore kind of like yoga experience. You need to have it very focused around that. And it's like, you need to really think about like, even though you have maybe one product or one service, there's usually three different types of people who buy or use your service, who have three different types of methodologies of why they would even use it or buy it. And you just need to silo them. And the only way you can silo them is by really asking them what it is that they even wanted to buy it for.
I feel like we're in a mystery novel. We're like Sherlock Holmes going like, okay, I have a magnifying glass. Now, what did this person do as we're going through? And that might be sort of a good idea to sort of think of it that way. Because otherwise it starts to get so massive, because there are so many options. And I think that's the thing where people sort of get carried down the river with everything else. They're like, I've got no clue. I'm just going to float down the river and generically say it to everyone and hope that works okay. And then people aren't seeing the rates they want, and then they get frustrated. So picking that one side of things, I think, would be really, really huge for people to do. So, what do you suggest on the quiz side, though? Like you were saying, like, how many questions do you think it should be? How do we make it easy for somebody to do that and implement the segmentation as simple as humanly possible, so we can give them a point to start, or a blog post you wrote or something, so they can dive in a little deeper on that?
Yeah. So if you're, let's say, using Typeform, right? I normally like to have it anywhere in total around 10 questions.
Okay.
And it sounds like a lot, but the way you want to design it is use split logic. And split logic pretty much means like, if someone answers a certain question, they're not going to question 2 like everyone else. If someone says like, let's say it's a yes or no question, right? Do you like having hair, right? And clearly I don't, because I'm bald. But I would say no. And it wouldn't say like, oh, what kind of hair products do you like?
Yep.
Because I don't really use hair products. It would automatically go into, okay, you answered no, so you don't have maybe hair. And so what kind of razors do you like to use? Instead of asking me hair products. So I think what people need to ask and kind of think about is like, if they were trying to sell it to a person and they were doing a proper needs analysis, right? How would they go down the rabbit hole if they were asking someone a question and wanting to learn more about them? And using the split logic really helps like ask like the core question, which is usually what you want as like question number 2 on this Typeform. You and what I like to use, and with Typeform, I don't know if you use it on yours, I like to use GIFs to kind of create like a cool animated kind of interactive feel, right? So you may want to say like, which one describes you? Almost ask them, but you use like the gifts to kind of like showcase like the different
That's
lifestyles
cutesy.
or types of people.
Ta-da.
And if they choose like, oh, I'm this type of person, then automatically that's like bucket number one of like persona. They're already kind of sitting there. And then you can put them through the split logic of like, all right, they already said they think they're this persona, but let's see if they actually match that kind of look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
then
interesting. That's not what I'm doing on mine that I'm coming out with. So now you're giving me other things to think about. So we were trying to do it as easy as humanly possible. So we literally, one question sort of buckets them into 4 separate buckets in general. And then we give them we give them the results based on what that is. And then we send them to another type form, which goes deeper into their business and what they do, depending on which funnel they go into, which can be very complicated when we're starting to go and segment like a bazillion times. Hence the reason why we're trying to make it simple. But we could actually, okay, now I'm thinking about my own stuff. So what's, when you're thinking about conversion rates for quizzes, what can we expect? Like if people are doing paid advertising, even my board of mentors was like, you should use a quiz, Jamie. I'm like, I know, people keep telling me this. So we're finally getting it up and going after a ridiculous long time. And I don't know what to expect for conversion rates. What should I be shooting for?
So what's really interesting, and I actually would quickly go into the type form of where my clients have this really quick, and I could kind of quickly give you the actual stats.
Good. I want real numbers. Yes.
So, and I'll give it 1 second until it loads. But here's what's cool. The completion rate is actually really high. And when you look at how much time people spend on this, it's sometimes like 5 minutes long. And we typically
love learning about themselves. Yay! Tell me what I am.
People really do. People really do. And what's really interesting about it is, if you make it fun and interactive, think BuzzFeed. Like, it's fun. When you see like images that move and it's kind of humorous, or it like adds to the question, of like what you're asking about. You see like this cool little picture or animated thing that kind of makes it flow nice. It makes the experience like more fun. They're like, oh, I wonder what the next cool question is going to be with this cool little image or whatever. But let me tell you what I'm seeing on my end.
Okay.
So right now, I'm seeing about people who got onto like unique visits. So one of them had around 200 unique visits, right? And the completed. So it looks like there's about 168 that actually completed it. So that conversion rate is extremely well.
What's the landing page look like on that? Because that's impressive.
So that's actually from the uncategorized people who clicked on the link from the email. So like they didn't know who they were, right? And they simply just said, hey, they were offering $50 off. So like, hey, if you complete this fun survey, we're going to give you $50.
That makes sense. Okay. So they're already on their list kind of thing too.
Yep,
so it's not like cold traffic going like, hey, give me information. That'd be insane. Okay.
But we do have one that is for that. So we were doing, let's say, YouTube ads. So we were doing YouTube ads, Facebook ads, and it was kind of like saying like, hey, if you want to, do this and fill out the survey to help get you started. Now that one's of course a much higher. That one has well over 1,000. It's actually, to be exact, like 1,273.
Okay.
People, and that was within a 2 weeks span.
Nice.
And with that has over a 64% completion rate.
Wow. Yeah, that is good. Cold YouTube ads?
So that's cold YouTube ads.
What is the landing page on that though too? Like how do you get people to take the test in that high regard?
So if you're using Typeform, you could do, if you're doing through like, let's say a Facebook ad, right? You could just drive people right to the mobile like look of Typeform.
Oh. It doesn't even say, it just says like whatever the name of the quiz is, and people are like, yay, and they just take it?
Exactly.
Oh, I thought I needed a landing page. Okay, good to know.
No, I would say, especially if you're doing that, keep it mobile focused, because fortunately for Typeform, it's very, very like mobile friendly.
Yeah,
it's actually, I actually think it's cooler on mobile, than desktop. But like, if you're gonna do it, just do it simply through set up all your ads for mobile. And if you're going to do desktop, just use their iframe embed and just have it set up through there and just have it flow like completely like that.
Okay. So we've given people so much stuff. Like I want them to like go, okay, great.
My brain hurts.
I know, which is good. And I mean, I'm going, ooh, I could do this, and that's awesome. So I want to sort of circle back because you talked about sort of in the middle about growth hacking your time, and I care so much about productivity, and I feel like I'm extremely efficient with what I do have for time, but I want to know how I can growth hack my time. I don't know how to do that. How do you? Because the question that you were talking about beforehand, which I ended up writing down, is looking at the things that you're taking a lot of time on. But what if you don't have the resource? What if I can't code a script that's going to make this faster for me? Or how do I find those solutions, even if I know what the problem is for my time?
So oftentimes, like most people don't know how to code, right? As awesome as it is, it's a lot. It's a time suck just doing and learning that, right? But we are fortunate in today's age to have like a global kind of economy of resources of personnel. Even if someone simply just even went on Upwork, right, and just found someone who could like develop JavaScript, and you explain to them like, hey, listen, I need to send these emails out every single day, or I have a huge Excel spreadsheet of all these people that I want to, reach out to or send an email out, but I don't want to individually keep sending all these emails out all the time. I want to automate it. Anything, especially with JavaScript, you could create the code because it just follows the same steps you normally would take, but it could do it in milliseconds, which is even crazier.
Okay, so let's talk about that. It's funny because I'm a geek, right? We used to run cron jobs and all sorts, but most people don't even know that they need a JavaScript programmer in order to get some of this stuff. So let's say they're looking at their time, and sort of a step-by-step form would be like, okay, start tracking your time and figuring out what you're spending most time on. How do we know what to ask the people? Like, oh, we need a JavaScript code that does this, that, and the other thing. Like,
well, here's actually a really prime example. One of the things that I like to do is do influencer outreach, right?
Okay.
So one of the things I used to do manually before I used to do any of this was simply going on YouTube and typing my keyword in and seeing all those people, and then I would be like, all right, that's I want to get every single, like, out of, let's say, the 100 video pages there are, which is 25 videos per page. I would click on it, go into their about, copy and paste their message, not message, but like video views, channel, subscribers, the video's name, and then go through the captcha code of like saying I'm not a bot, and then I finally get their email address and be like, okay, now I can put this into my list, and then off to the next one. And that process would take me sometimes 5 minutes to do and go through. And by the time I got through page one, I already wasted like almost an hour of my time. So one of the things I was like, all right, I got to automate this. So fortunately for me, I know this stuff, and I also have a great team behind me of other, programmers. So I was like, guys, here's what I'm doing. And it's as simple as you recording what you do that's like on a reputation and saying, this is what I do. And just handing it over to a JavaScript coder, he would know like, okay, this is what I got to build, and this is the code I got to do. So it's as simple as that, guys. If you just show like in a video share, like, this is what I'm doing, that's over and over and over again. Can you just program this to do this? It's as simple as that. I wish I had a cooler answer, but like it's that easy for people to really think about like, all right, if I just hand this over and this is what I'm looking for, this is how they could develop it.
So most of the time people are like, oh, I'll just hire somebody like in the Philippines or hire an executive assistant and have them do it all for you. But the capability of code makes a huge difference. And that's me going like, how can we automate? Because I don't have like a hardcore programmer on my team where I can go, ooh, go do this, and ooh, go do this. And now I'm thinking that maybe I should.
It's worthwhile having a project-based person. Because when you start thinking about that stuff, like, to give you an insight how fast it scraped through, it was probably like around close to 15,000 videos. By the time that was done, it only took around 8 hours to finish, and it generated over like 3,000 emails. And all this.
So what did you do with those emails? Exactly. So they have all this contact information of all these influencers. Then what did you do? Because that's the marketing side of it. Like, okay, great. I have the automated. I do the emails. Now what?
Now, so what I would do for my clients that I'm doing like an influencer outreach for, I would use YesWhere. Are you familiar with YesWhere?
Yeah, but tell
All
everybody
right.
else.
Perfect. Yeah. So YesWhere is this like awesome tool that helps also automate your mail merges. But what I like about this YesWhere compared to like Mailchimp is that it looks like it actually sends from your actual email address. It's not like, you know, looking like it has all the tags from like Aweber and all that good
Yep.
stuff. It
Unsubscribe.
looks
No, yeah.
yeah. There's a little unsubscribe like subtly on the bottom.
Yeah.
It actually the way it's set up, it sends from your inbox. So it sends individual emails, but you can mail merge them and automate them and make them look really good. So if I'm grabbing, let's say for in this case, like their channel name, their video and all this and their video link and all that good stuff, I will use YesWhere to do a mail blast to all those people, and I'll set up very similar to like how you would use Mailchimp and Aweber. Like I would set up like if they don't reply back, a follow up message that will send out, and it'll just completely automate that process. So what's cool with that is like now I got all these emails. Now I set up the blast. I don't have to do any extra effort because I have the template there. It pulls the information that I pulled, like the channel name, and I'll craft the message out field personalized. That pulls all those elements that I scraped, and I just hit go, and it'll send out all those messages for me. And all I literally have to do is wait for them to reply back and say like, yeah, I'm interested. You know, send me more information. And if they reply back, they're not going to get that second message. If they don't reply back in like 3 or 4 business days, a simple message is going to say, hey, I just want to make sure you got my email. Really interested in using your doing work together, and maybe having you do a product market review for my product. But what's even cooler with that is that most people who want to advertise on YouTube, they rely too heavily on YouTube's targeting metrics. And so like demographic targeting and interest targeting is the main ones, right? But again, you got to think about your buyer. You got to think about their mindset. You got to figure out how you growth hack that. So the way you do that is if let's say let's say for you, right? You would probably want to have I would be your key person if I wanted to enroll into your programs, Jamie. So if you were putting an ad, you would target like, business owners, interests, and all these different things. But at that time I'm on YouTube, maybe I'm not in the mindset of your services. Maybe I just want to look at sport highlights, and maybe I want to just like, watch like a cooking video. I'm not in the mindset of like, I actually really want to get trained and coached for my business. But if I'm looking at videos that are revolving around coaching, marketing myself, these things, that thing, and there's those pre-rolls, and oftentimes you see the random Geico commercials that are coming up, and you're like, okay, I have no idea. But that's the feeling that people would get if your ad was on like a cat video.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
you're
I
like,
was going to do that. I thought that would be great. No, I'm kidding. But you see Tai Lopez on like every single entrepreneur video anywhere. I'm like, oh, there's Tai Lopez again. He's in front of every video ever.
But there's a way to do that. So the way you do that it's a kind of killing two birds with one stone with that scrape I developed. It pulls the URL of every one of those videos. So if I'm targeting them as an influencer, I'm also targeting their videos and their channel. Okay. So I can set up an advertisement that has all the URLs to have my ad only specific on those videos.
So you can import to that specifically.
Yep.
Only for those specific keywords.
Yep. So what's cool, I like to call it's like the hijacking method, right? I'm essentially going to be hijacking that pre-ad space of people that I know. If they're watching a marketing tutorial, I want my ad to say like pretty much like, hey, why are you watching marketing tutorials? The best way for you to really learn how to do this is by checking out this. Tai Lopez does do a really good job with kind of like his placements because they're relevant, so relevant. He's like snipes. He's like a sniper with it. But the thing is, the only way you could do this, you need the max quantity, and that's where the time suck comes in. Oftentimes what people used to do is people used to literally have it where they were copying and pasting all these URLs into their portal. So by the time you got to like the 100 URL, you're like, all right, this is not worth it. I'm just going to go back to the demographic targeting.
Well, so let me ask you this then too, because I know we have to start wrapping up in a second. But how does a small business owner determine what the best marketing tactic would be? Even if they have a quiz, it's like, do I do YouTube ads? Do I do direct outreach on LinkedIn? Do I do Facebook ads? There's 1,000 things that they could be doing, and they're all separate learning curves usually.
Yes, totally. So the best thing for you really to think about is like if you have a market, you got to really figure out what the main portal they are on, right? you see it probably all the time too. People like to do the be everywhere approach.
I know, I hate that.
I'm going to be on Snapchat. I'm going to be on Facebook. I'm going to be on all these things. But what happens is everyone becomes half baked.
Yep.
It doesn't look good.
Yep.
I like to say, instead of being everywhere, just be where. Just be where 80% of your market is actively on. So if they're actively on Pinterest, just only focus on Pinterest. Kick butt on Pinterest. And the only way you really understand that, it kind of goes back into like really kind of just asking a little bit, right? And even if you use Typeform, like for that Academy of Responsible Tattooing, they thought a lot of the audience was on Twitter. One of the questions that we asked, we used like their little icons of like ratings. Be like, hey, how often are you on Twitter? How often are you on Facebook? Do you watch YouTube tutorials on tattooing? Because they didn't think people did that. And they found, just by those quick little answers of using the cute little icons, they're like, holy crap, no one really uses Twitter. And we thought everyone used Twitter. And now they saw like actually most of our audience watches, how to like the DIY kind of tattoo artists kind of, and they're like, wow, this is a big problem. We need to really be on here, because all the other channels that we thought we were on is actually they're on this. So I would say if you really want to understand where you want to put most of your focus, you just simply ask, but do it in a really interactive way that you just kind of like throw that quick little zinger of like, hey, how often are you on this? And if you start seeing that your audience is mainly on one platform, just go, balls to the wall and make it work, and just focus on that platform.
Well, I think what comes up is beginner's mind, right? We all think we know our prospect. We're like, oh, but I know them really. But they're like me, and I know that I would do this. And people are like, oh, God. You really need to make sure you're actually asking and finding out from data and let that tell you where to go, instead of being like, I think it's here. Because half the time we're freaking wrong. We think we're smarter than we technically are most of the time. I mean, usually data will prove us wrong. We can have assumptions, but we'll be like scientists instead of just going, oh, I'm going to go on YouTube because I think people are on YouTube watching this kind of stuff in general. Okay. Yep. So I know we have to start wrapping up. I know we sort of went through a whole bunch of pieces. But what's one action? All you get is one. What's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
I would say one action, figure out the one thing that you do every single day that you take more than 1 hour thinking of how to organize or doing, that you could easily offset and now focus on that hour now having on how you could grow your business and other aspects. And then repeat that step. And when you run into another area, like I'm spending an hour doing this manually, how do I offset that and have it going further? Because if you could do that, what's great about it is if you can automate as many things as you can in your life and in your business, it doesn't mean that you have to hire someone. So if you could have pretty much robots working for you, you essentially are making more money.
Heck yeah, I want robots working for. I'm going to hire somebody I'm going to hire a robot to ask you questions. Therefore, I don't have to do any more millionaire interviews. I'll be perfect. No, I'm kidding.
You can have like a jib jab kind of thing. Your mouth would just move.
That would be hilarious. Thank you so much for coming on, Nick. Where can we find more about you and Second Flight Academy and all that?
Totally. So anyone could connect with me on Twitter at Nick Kullin, but also if you want to actually meet with me or chat with me, you could go on Second Flight Academy and I have an online booking link there, or you could just simply use meetme.so/Nick Kullin. And you could schedule time, just chat, and we could figure out what we could do to growth hack your business.
Okay, be prepared, though. Some of my people are just like, I want to talk to Nick, so you said it.
I'll open up my calendar for you guys. I know Jamie's audience is a pretty cool crew, so I'm willing to talk to them.
They are awesome. We have to say that because they're amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. I hope you have a fantastic day.
No, thank you. See ya.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want more like it, go to eventualmillionaire.com. If you click on the millionaire case studies, you will see over 200 millionaire interviews. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, of course, but I do want you to pick the one that might make the biggest difference in your business today. So what's something you're struggling with, and take a look and see if one of those could specifically help you. Don't just take information for information's sake. I want you to be able to take the information, have it applicable to you right now. You use it, you take action, you see results, you come back and go, Jamie, that was amazing. That's what I want. So go check out eventualmillionaire.com and click on the millionaire case studies. Thanks.